and we are already on
Martinez,
time. Exactly.
Thank you very much. You spot on, helped us keep to our schedule, and do not worry, I am not going to kill you anytime soon. Rest assured, we have 2,000 miles of space between us, so you are absolutely safe.
You are completely right, and we must follow German rules. 10, 15 is 10, 15. Thank you very much, sir. Come on, the floor is yours.
I now have the pleasure to start with our fifth session. I can already see William Hong Song Wang warming up in the background to deliver his speech. We do see you now. We do see your American flag in the background. And ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I would say, why not share your presentation with us? Try to keep it in editing mode so that we can all see how the slides progress. And then I believe I do speak for all of us, saying we look forward to your ideas on Israel Kirsner's, on dynamic efficiency and economic development.
Okay, let me see if I can share this.
Well, it seems to be frozen a little.
Yeah. Hanson is frozen.
Yes, but that might not be the temperature.
Bad weather.
Definitely. Okay, he has left us now. Let us see. We'll give him 2 minutes to restart it. And if not, perhaps we'll just move a little. But there you are again.
Okay, let me see if I can put the presentation. Okay, I get it. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Page 2 it is.
Okay. Full screen, let me see if it's possible or not.
No, no full screen, please. Keep it in editing mode.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, hello everyone. Buenos dias. Today I'm going to present the paper co-authored with Victor Espinosa and Dr. Zhu Haiju. Victor is a PhD candidate of economics at King Juan Carlos University, and Professor Zhu Haiju is a Chinese Austrian school economist in the Chinese mainland. And I just graduated from the doctoral program of economics at the Complutense University of Madrid. So today the topic is about how we see the Kirchnerian version of dynamic efficiency development economics. So let's make a short introduction of this paper. We talk about the notion of dynamic efficiency proposed by Israel Kirsner for the field of development economics. The paper argues that efficiency is a forgotten element in Kirsner's theory of entrepreneurship, which cannot be excluded without impairing the theory's premise of development as a dynamic process of coordinating plans. The paper's relevance lies in the fact that Kirsner's analysis of efficiency can reshape mainstream development economics. Kirsner's criticism of the static allocation efficiency that governs mainstream development economics is spelled out. Following this, the core statements of Kirsner's dynamic efficiency approach are identified to elucidate its efficiencies on the market process. The framework serves to highlight the link between dynamic entrepreneurial competitiveness and economic process, and in turn, clarify certain ethical dilemmas. Finally, modern research on dynamic efficiency is explored, especially the impact of psychology, culture, and morality on the development of economics. And just make a quick, short definition of entrepreneurship. We define entrepreneurship here as that the entrepreneurs are making decisions under the market uncertainty. However, this statement of the Austrian school economists like Kirsner, Mrs. Rosbart, Forster Klein, contrasts with the theories and models that govern mainstream economics, such as random control trial, in which zero intelligence agents replace the flesh and blood entrepreneur. The RCT's method prioritizes the search of efficiency, the efficient economic outcome through the trials and error of different interventions. So, where's the origin of the word efficiency comes from? So, in general, efficiency is a concept related to the effectiveness with which the available means are deployed to reach ends. So, it is derived from the Greek word meaning causing to move or causing to spend. So Kistner argues that the dynamic efficiency involves expanding the domain of what is known, continually shift the location of profitable opportunities, and thus continually inspiring yet further discoveries, expanding the domain of what is known. So the static perspective of efficiency means that allocate the resources in a given framework. But what's the problem of the concept of efficiency in the modern development economics? After World War II, development economics was strongly influenced by the principles of static allocative efficiency. That is the static definition of efficiency, which was also promoted by Professor Robbins and Keynes. So the majority of development literature reduces poverty to a set of ethical claims that take for granted different degrees of government intervention. So there are also some cases of the static efficiency concept from some economists, like Jeffrey Sachs. However, the economists who disagree with them have their own views, like William Eastley. He argues that we cannot use the given framework to solve the problem of poverty. It's not that use the computer from a central planner's desk to use formulas to calculate, but we have to try to have the more creative way, that is entrepreneurship, to create to have more productivity and to serve the customers. So another problem of the random controlled trials that we've mentioned of the mainstream development economy is that these kind of trials are reduced to a simple trial and error strategy, which implies arbitrarily testing some cosmetic issues in underdeveloped countries. However, all the Austrian school economists like Ludwig von Mises, Israel Kastner, and Hayek, they all argue that to have more economic activity and more coordination, that it is essential that we have the entrepreneurial activities based on the voluntary exchange of the products. And in this sense, we could achieve both the plan coordination in the ex-ante sense and the plan and the price coordination in the ex-post sense. And especially for Kastner, he worked out that economic phenomena are governed by a logical chain of cause and effect, which constitutes and generates a dynamic market process that are systematically driven by not the pattern of mutual constraints, which reflect the maximization decision of market participants, but the outside the box, daring hunches of entrepreneurs. The reason in our paper that we also summarize some of Kastner's point of view are the dynamic efficiency and economic development. So after that, the paper later also in the fifth part also talked about the problems in the modern development economics. So first of all, the empirical evidence does not tell us that it is it is that the people that who are in the underdeveloped countries do not have the capacity to produce more. However, it is a problem from the institutions, especially the state intervention and central planning. And also another controversial debate that we reviewed in this paper is about the ethics of income and wealth inequality generated by market economy. Economists such as Thomas Piketty and the rest of them argue that high inequality is chiefly due to the extreme concentration of capital ownership and capital income. Not only the classical Austrian, the classic ones like the Kessner, Mrs. Hayek, they argued about the dynamic efficiency, but also we see the modern Austrian economists like Harper, Bortik, and Werner Soto, they also talk about it. For example, for Harper, that if the entrepreneur has more self-confidence and probably that it can produce more entrepreneur profits. And also for Berkey, culture is very important for changing the patterns and to adapt a better entrepreneur performance. And Professor Soto, his argument is that the private property rights is a necessary and sufficient condition for dynamic efficiency. Because if we have more if we have the private property rights, that entrepreneurs could have more incentive to work more, to create more. And if there is an environment of the entrepreneur activities, and also that people, the entrepreneurs, could realize the importance of the ethics of private property rights. So we argue that we can use these agendas to develop more and to modify the errors of the modern development economics. Thank you. This is my presentation. I finished.
Yeah. Leef. Professor Leef. Leef, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clearly, yes.
Okay.
Here we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me thank you for that excellent presentation. I remember the presentation a year ago in Madrid, which was equally good, I might want to add. And I'm glad to see you keep up the very high pace. So thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions, any comments you might have, perhaps? Well, then let me jump in here and ask you, what is it that you are working on in the long term now? So if I asked you where your research will be in 2 or 3 years from now, what would be perhaps the answer? Which direction is this heading to?
You mean about the issues on development economics?
Yes, I refer to what you are up to, what you plan on doing with this research for the next few years.
Okay, currently I'm doing five areas of research. The first is economic history, pensamiento de teoría monetaria. Sorry, I forget English. Economic history, economic thought history, entrepreneurship, development economics, and business cycle theory. So for the topic of development economics, that we would like to use the Austrian view to modify the study areas that emerge from the modern development economics. So we modified areas of the neoclassical version of development economics and to have a new version of the Austrian type.
All right. So kind of, let's say, continuing what you have been doing, kind of what we have heard yesterday already. Basically, yes, returning to this battle of ideas trying to bring us forward. So thank you very much, William Hong Song Wang. I do appreciate the effort you made. I do appreciate, as always, the very good presentation you have delivered. And ladies and gentlemen, should we have any more questions, we have enough time to raise them towards the end. So just keep them in mind. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, now I look forward to the next paper, Innovativism, Alertness, Uncertainty Bearing. So you can see that this role of uncertainty in markets has kept us busy for quite a while now. We had started speaking about that and its implications yesterday, and the next presentation will always also focus on that. It is Bernardo Ferrero who will speak on the Austrian perspective on Schumpeter and on Kirchner's theory of entrepreneurship. So you can see we move from intrapreneur to entrepreneurship, but within this second presentation of our fifth session, already the fifth session, we stay focused on Israel Kirchner's theories. So, Bernardo Ferrero, the floor is all yours. Provided, of course, you are here. Well, that comes as a surprise. Then let me ask you, Antonio Sanchez Bayon, are you here?
Yep, yes, I am.
Would you mind if we started with your presentation now?
Sure, Professor. Let me upload the presentation, please.
Yes, take your time, because I would like to introduce you. So Antonio Sanchez Bayon is from Universidad Rey Juan Carlos. I admit he was kind of a latecomer, but we believe that it was an outstanding contribution, and therefore we felt bad if we had excluded him from sharing with this. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we have a conflict of interest here, because I have got Antonio Sanchez Bayon running up, and I have got Bernardo Ferrero who showed up. Seems like it was not his issue. Antonio,
yep.
¿Estás de acuerdo si vamos a mover Bernardo antes?
It's up to you, Professor. Whatever you say is okay.
Then please, let us stay with the originally agreed upon schedule. Let us start with Bernardo Ferrero, please. I'm sorry for this confusion. Can you kill your presentation so that Bernardo can get in?
Yeah, yes, can you all hear me?
I can hear you, but I still see the wrong presentation in the background.
Yeah, well, mine will be, I do not have a PowerPoint, so I think that's Sanchez, what's the other presentation?
Well, okay. So Antonio, if you could move the presentation that we get Bernardo in full screen mode, but Bernardo, I believe I repeat myself saying the floor is all yours now.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that both yesterday and today we touched on elements that actually are pertinent to my presentation. My presentation, as the title says, is an analysis of Kirchner and Schumpeter's theories of entrepreneurship. But what I do in the paper is actually go earlier and try to understand what are the roots of entrepreneurial theory, because it's actually interesting when one studies entrepreneurial theory that it's very tied with the development of economics per se as a science. Up until the 17th and 18th centuries, the idea of the entrepreneur was somewhat gray. It was mostly a term used to identify different kinds of managers, government contractors, and so forth. It's really with Cantillon and the French liberal school of economics that the entrepreneur actually starts assuming a proper economic function. So what I do is review more or less the entrepreneur in the history of economic thought, going from Cantillon to Turgot to Jean-Baptiste Say. Explain also why, with the British classical economist, we see a deviation from this point of view, given the fact that they give a lot of emphasis on long-run natural equilibrium conditions, and that obviously sort of implies a sort of neglect of the entrepreneur. It's really with Schumpeter in the 20th century that we see a reevaluation of the entrepreneur. And in my view, it's important to compare the theory of Schumpeter with Kirzner, not merely because they're two of the most cited economists in this field, especially in the management studies, but also because even though they are within the Austrian framework, they not only allow us to understand the various peculiarities of both authors, but also give us sort of a possibility of reflection of whether we can improve upon such theory and whether we can integrate the sort of creativity and coordination which they talk about. Schumpeter's theory was developed in 1911 in his one of the most famous book, The Theory of Economic Development, and it's really not his main issue, not his main idea to talk about entrepreneurship. His main idea is trying to explain what gives rise to economic development in a static world. He's a Valrasian, so of course he tries to explain how we can go from a circular flow where taste, resources, techniques are given, and then explain economic development. And it's there that he finds out the architect of the entrepreneur. It's kind of similar to what Valras did with regards to marginal utility. He wanted to construct his general equilibrium framework and then found out that rarité was actually something that allowed him to finish this framework and to make it complete. According to Schumpeter, economic development is something that does not occur in the regular economies. It's something which is a complete revolution of the structure of production. And he sees the entrepreneur as somebody who sort of drives this process of change. It's interesting to understand that for him, unlike Cantillon, for example, unlike Turgot, unlike Jean-Baptiste Say, and unlike the Austrians, the entrepreneur is the the driving force of the market, but it's embedded, let's say, in not non-praxeological traits, if one may say so. He focuses a lot on the personality of the entrepreneur, a personality that is not afraid of change, and that has something interesting, that he doesn't strive for monetary profit, as we and the Austrians would say, but rather has other kinds of goals, such as founding a kingdom, like simply for the joy of creating, and so forth. And so he has sort of non-monetary goals. And so he very much emphasizes the creativity. Kirzner instead sort of focuses on the coordination, and according to him, the entrepreneur is not really that creative per se. He just spots opportunities for gain, which are predetermined to some extent in the environment. The main emphasis of this is to try and see whether actually the two theories are compatible or not, and mainly if they actually are saying the same thing or not. And it seems that they're saying two different things. But if one dives into the subject, one understands that both of them actually are very much in line with one another, and the only main difference is with regards to whether the entrepreneur is especially creative or whether he's especially alert. Just as a note, I think that the main thing that unites Kirzner and Schumpeter is that they are both equilibrium theorists. Now, this might shock to some people, but I think that they are both equilibrium theorists. As I said, Schumpeter tries to explain how we go from an equilibrium position to a non-equilibrium position, and explains in this process the entrepreneur. A similar thing is done by Kirzner, although he emphasizes the entrepreneur as a driver of change, not driver of change, a driver of the market. He does so. His main idea is to explain equilibration in the market. Stephen Horowitz, the Austrian economist, has a nice quote. He says, Kirzner is trying to give a Misesian answer, in Misesian terms, to a Hayekian questions. How do we arrive at that equilibrium, multi-plan coordination equilibrium? The two find the similarities in Wieser. It's something very interesting. For example, I saw in Wieser, I was reading lately his book on social economics, we find a quote where he puts together both the creative and the alert part. And he says, and I quote, among the numerous qualities, referring to the entrepreneur, which he requires in order to do justice to his task, there is one which is most important. It is the one which provides his very name. He must be enterprising. He must possess the quick perception that seizes new turns in current transactions as his affairs develop. He must possess the independent forcefulness to regulate his business according to his views. There is also the requirement that he must have the courage to accept the risks which are connected with every capital investment. This is especially true with one who enters a new field and a new and untried field. So we see both the creative and bold part and also the perception, right? He says that the entrepreneur must be perceptive, and that's the kind of alert idea. What I do then after analyzing these two theories is trying to explain how the creativity and coordination of the market can be explained in a better and more realistic fashion. And I believe that we can find very much an interesting solution to this in the writings of the Austrian school up to Kerzner and following to some extent Kerzner. From Menger to Bombaverk, and even one could argue some Anglo-American economists like John Bates Clark or Frank Feder, we see that the entrepreneur is not simply the man who has a new idea or is alert to a special opportunity. He is also the man who bears the uncertainty and is the main man, so to speak, in the economy that bears the uncertainty, on whose income depends on bearing uncertainty. We all have, to some extent, we all bear some uncertainty, but obviously there's a difference between a laborer and a capitalist entrepreneur. The capitalist entrepreneur is the only figure in the economy that can earn negative wages. No other person can earn negative wages, and that's precisely. And the idea is to put ownership and capital investment along with the sort of alertness or creativity of the entrepreneur. And the reason for this is that in the real world, the entrepreneur is necessarily a capitalist, and he's also necessarily a property owner who directs the process of production and allocates specifically capital to different uses. I know Brecht will like this because he likes Lachmann, and I think his book 1956 on capital and its structure is a very well underappreciated book, where he actually defines what the entrepreneur is, and combines it with the idea of the capital structure and how entrepreneurship is also capital investment and property ownership. He says, we are living in a world of unexpected change. Hence, capital combinations will ever be changing, will be dissolved and reformed. In this activity, we find the real function of the entrepreneur. In the essay, I go a bit more in detail. There's also very important criticisms made by fellow Austrians to Kerzner. When Kerzner published the book in 1973, three economists, Henry Hazlitt, Percy Greaves, and Murray Rothbard, wrote some interesting sort of reviews of the book, where they actually underline the fact that one of the errors of Kerzner is precisely the idea that property is absent and capital investment as well. And so, therefore, there's no real uncertainty bearing that the entrepreneur really sort of bears. And the same obviously goes to Schumpeter. Schumpeter actually has the idea that the resources the entrepreneur gets is actually simply created out of thin air by the banker. He doesn't need any previous capital because, of course, he believes we're in an equilibrium situation where there are no additional profit opportunities. I just to conclude and sort of summarize, I think that the reason why we must stress the idea that the entrepreneur is also a capital investor and a property owner, it's what Professor Salerno calls the integral entrepreneur, which is, or the capitalist entrepreneur in Bombaverk terms, or the promoter entrepreneurs in Misesian terms, is because it has some interesting implications and other important subjects for us. I'll just mention some. First of all, with regards to economic development and macroeconomics as a whole. Macroeconomics, we can divide it into sort of the theory of economic development, the business cycle, and so forth. And obviously, we cannot really talk about economic development as being driven by the entrepreneur if we forget about the capital structure. The capital structure is, so to speak, the basis of economic development, and it's not simply the capital which is important, it's also the structure, the fact that there must be order between heterogeneous and multi-specific capital goods. And obviously, who creates that coordination and order is the entrepreneur. For example, I have another quote by Lachmann who says, Plans have to be revised, new capital combinations are formed, and old combinations disintegrate. Without the painful pressure of the forces of change, there would be no progress in the economy. Without the steady action of the entrepreneurs in specifying the uses of capital and modifying such decisions, as the forces of change unfold, a civilized economy could not survive at all. We see how in Lachman the entrepreneur needs to specify the uses of capital goods, because capital goods are heterogeneous. If we forget about this part, then we sort of neglect the idea of heterogeneity. Another important implication of the importance of seeing the entrepreneur also as a capitalist and as a property owner is with regards to the analysis of socialism. Now, we've seen that one of the greatest accomplishments, say, of Professor Huerta de Soto is to come up with a new definition of socialism, which improves upon Mises's definition, which is government or state or collective ownership of the means of production. It also improves upon Hoppe's theory, definition on in socialism as being the institutional aggression against private property or private property titles. But I think that there's a defect, or at least an incomplete thing within Professor Huerta de Soto's definition, which is correct, and the idea that socialism is is an institutional aggression towards entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial function. But if we understand the entrepreneur as a property owner, then the various definitions, so to speak, they are more or less the same, and obviously it has an implication because profits and losses can only make sense with regards to capital, and obviously prices itself only can have existence when there's property, and these property is exchanged by property owners, bearing uncertainty. So I think that there's some interesting things that can be derived from this idea. It's interesting to see, for example, that Mises says there's a rule of thumb to distinguish entrepreneurs from non-entrepreneurs, and that's who bears the incidence of losses. In Kirzner's idea, losses do not exist, because the only thing that can happen is that I'm not alert to a profit opportunity, I miss it, and that's it. Like no big deal, one would say. But of course, losses are very, very important and make sense only when somebody risks his property. And of course, there's other kind of implications, like with the business cycle and malinvestment. What is malinvestment? Well, a large sector of society, a large sector of the entrepreneurs simply lose on the capital. And if we lose this idea of entrepreneurial loss, then business cycles are really, they cannot really occur in such a very big scale. So what I try to do to conclude in this paper is to explain why we need to integrate both theories, both the Schumpeterian theory and the Kirchnerian theory, within a more complete and praxeological based theory that understands that the entrepreneur has three functions. One is obviously the bearing of uncertainty, or what Bertrand de Journel would call proference or judgment in Knight's term. Then capital investment, investing capital, because that's the only way you can actually bear real uncertainty. You cannot simply bear uncertainty like this. You need to risk something in the process while you cope with the uncertainty. And third, property owner or ultimate decision maker. So this is basically the aim of the paper, and I'm looking forward to your further questions. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Bernardo. Thank you very much for that enlightening presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. Any questions we might have? I have seen that Edgar Carlos Duarte has raised his hand. So is that a question on your behalf?
Yes, thank you, Bernardo, for the excellent presentation. I see that your position as a professor is very close to that of Professor Peter Klein's, and it is interesting that you have not quoted him. I would like to ask you if you are basing your view on his work, or it is a conclusion you came independently. And also, I would like you to comment on the coordinating function of the entrepreneur.
Okay. The connection, ladies and gentlemen, is not the best, I have to admit. But if I understood Mr. Duarte correctly, he inquired whether or not you reached your conclusions independently or whether you cooperated and based them on the work of one Professor Klein.
So I did I came up with this framework not independently, of course, not independently because we all stand on the shoulders of giants. But after reading an interesting paper by Rothbard called Professor Herbert on Entrepreneurship, which has been renamed or retitled Professor Kirzner on Entrepreneurship, where he develops very important critiques and and then Peter Klein, Joseph Salerno, and others base their theory also on a on that Rothbardian essay. But there are other theories that have influenced me as well that are very much neglected. Actually, some Lachmanians, people that are very close otherwise to Kirzner and Lachman and to the whole project also of sort of the radical subjectivism, and that's Jack High from a 1982 paper called Alertness and Judgment, a comment on Kirzner, where he actually criticizes Kirzner and explains how judgment is very much present in the works of Mises and how it allows us to forecast the future and also to decide exactly which course of action we must follow. And the judgment is obviously the essence of the entrepreneurial function. So I sort of get the whole picture from different authors and try to understand. As I said, I also connected with Berta de Soto's arguments. So
excellent. Now, Mr. Duarte, you are back again. I hope you heard the answer. I hope you managed to stay in.
Yeah, I heard the last part of it, so I think I understand that he view from different authors. The other question I had is, what is your view on the coordinating function of the entrepreneur? Is it important at all? I mean, because being an investor doesn't preclude the possibility of you being a coordinator or not at all in the market thinking.
So I think that the entrepreneur can either coordinate or non-coordinate, because if he earns losses, then he's not coordinated. I think coordination needs to be reformulated, or at least I'm referring now to an essay by Salerno, which talks about different kind of coordination. We think about coordination in Hayekian terms about plan coordination, but there's a different kind of coordination, what William Hutt would call price coordination. And I think that coordination that the entrepreneurial system brings about is not an equilibrium between prices and costs, as Kirzner or Hayek would say, but the fact that resources at any given time are allocated to the expected highest valued uses, and that property ends up accumulating in the hands of those entrepreneurs who are better stewards of the resources and who have better forecasting abilities. In that sense, the market system and the entrepreneurial element of the market system is coordinating, in the sense that bad investments are liquidated and good entrepreneurs are expand their operations in coordination, in this sense, with the desires of the consumers in the market.
Excellent. Well, I do hope that answers your question. Thank you very much. And we have one more question from Brecht before we then move on to the third presentation in our fifth session. So Brecht, please. You might want to open your mic. That would help us. Yes.
Sorry. It's not really a question, Bernardo. It's more of a congratulation, because your paper, you have been born as a Rothbardian, and you will die as a Rothbardian, I think. But in the meantime, I see that you quote more and more Lachman and the radical subjectivists. And in this paper, especially Schumpeter, points out that it is traits of personality which are very important in entrepreneurial activity. So the ability to think outside of the box. And because you have thought outside of the box, and because the jury thought that your paper was one of the best, you are also nominated for the Macrotrends Prize for the Development of Economics.
Thank you very much, Brecht. I'm quoting but I'm quoting also the first Lachman than the second Lachman. So maybe Rothbard will not be that unhappy. But I thank you very much for your
okay,
kind.
Just that. Bye bye.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that we are eventually getting there. We now reveal who has been nominated for the Macro Trends Prize in Austrian Economics. And it will be shortly after 4 o'clock this afternoon that Brecht Ernert can then reveal who has won, who is runner-up, and who secured the third prize. Folks, again, apologies for the slight hiccup in our schedule. I would now, in a second chance, like to please ask Professor Antonio Sanchez Bayon from Universidad Rey Juan Carlos to please share his presentation with us. And as before, I do look forward to what you have to say. So, Professor Sanchez, please.
Many thanks, Professor, and good morning, everyone. And thanks to let me be part of this conference, and thanks to all of you, to attend this presentation. As well, you could read, this presentation is about the peak of the accreditation system for the business school and the solution of the Austrian School of Economics in the digital transition. Please let me introduce a little bit of myself. As Professor say, my name is Antonio Sanchez Bayon. I'm assistant professor of applied economics at the Universidad Rey Juan Carlos, but before I was a vice dean research in different business schools, and I'm a PhD in law, PhD in theology, PhD in philosophy, and PhD in humanities. Also, I'm a PhD candidate in economics thanks to Professor Estrella Trincado Aznar. She's a full professor of history of economics at the Universidad Complutense de Madrid. She's the co-author of this presentation. And well, what is about this presentation, this paper? Um, well, to the students of the master, please take note now, because Professor Huerta de Soto said that you are going to receive an extra point if you send the abstract of this presentation. So pretty quickly, this paper explains the rise and fall of the Spanish business school according to the accreditation system in the last decade. It means 2010. There are only 4 countries in the world. One is Spain, with 4 business schools with the triple crown. It means the 3 main international accreditation. This system was great for international recognition and reputation at the beginning of the globalization, but it is really expensive and bureaucratic and slow to attend the digital transition and the whole changes in the business culture right now. It is pretty difficult to review the academic curricula under the accreditation system. So each time there is more distance with the market demands, the professional demands. It is necessary an agile solution like the Austrian School of Economics offers with a humanistic approach, which includes the entrepreneurship, talent, and happiness management. This paper makes a diagnosis and a proposal to get back to the success to the Spanish business school. So, what are we going to do in this presentation? We are going to talk a little bit about 5 points. First point is the introduction, the Spanish business school paradox, because as more accreditation they get, more risk they have it, and the accreditation peak, because very expensive and bureaucratic without the key elements right now for the digital economy, like entrepreneurship, talent, and happiness management. As the new stage of the digital economy is the well-being economics. And because this is a system for business school focus in managers, but not for the new kind of business leaders that they are really necessary. Second point is the historical review of the Spanish education in business studies, from the schools of commerce in the beginning of the 19th century to the dual way in the 50s, no? Because there were in that period, no, the professional business school in one hand, and the other hand, the business school of economics and business. But right now, thanks to the accreditation system, there's a huge confusion between these kind of two institutions. And the third point is about the Spanish business school boom, no, in the late 50s with the recovery of the Spanish economy in that period. And in that period, to the different kind of institutions. No, the religious set. No, it means that the whole Jesuits network. No, ICADE, ISADE, TEA, etc. And the public set. No, the EOI. No, and also the name of this business school. It was a industrial school. No, so you could understand where they were, what they were focusing that period. The fourth point is about globalization and the business school brand by accreditation system. No, because we move it from alumni proud, no, to external evaluation, no, this kind of accreditation system. And right now it's necessary to come back, no, to the alumni proud network. And the fifth point now is about the conclusions. Let me just only tell you, this presentation, this paper is according to a new discipline, education and economics, which includes, the GL codes, A12, A14. Please don't move the slides if you don't mind. B2, I31, N1, and Z1. This is pretty important because according our students, we teach them how to see and how to deal with the social reality. They are do that, no. So right now it's necessary to understand, like you could see here, the augmented reality thanks to your cell phone, because in this way, no, right now, thanks to your cell phone, you have your office, you have everything right now to make to make a business in everywhere, in every time. So this is pretty important, a new way to understand the social reality and how to deal with that. So, a pretty quick quiz. When we talk about the Triple Crown, what are we talking about? We are talking about Pets Meal, Runners Race, or Business School Accreditation System. And the answer is, of course, if we want to pick the best business school in the world, right now there are more than 100,000 really good business schools in the world. How we could distinguish and how we could pick, the best business school to study and to be a successful businessman. It's pretty difficult. So for this reason, at the beginning of the globalization, this way, this external evaluation, the accreditation system, it was great, and right now, you could see what these three main principal accreditations where they are focused. Now, the uh, the AMBA, this British organization, they pay attention to the programs. The EQUIS, this European, this is right now in Brussels, they pay attention to the level of the business school. And the American Association for the Business Schools, they pay attention to the university level. And right now, well, if we compare, the evolution from the beginning of the this last decade, from the year 2012 until 2018, the difference is, in that period, at the beginning of the last decade, there were just only 56 business schools with the Triple Crown, and most of them they were in Europe. And right now, for example, Spain has the privilege, according to this system, to have four business schools: ESADE, IESE, IE, and ESDP Europe, no, in Madrid, linked with Universidad Carlos III. And they have the triple crown, no, the major distinction in this according to this accreditation system. But at the same time, in Spain, the problem is bigger, no? Because also we need to deal with the public agency, the ANECA, which has to evaluate also the programs and the professors, everything, no? And because in other cases it's not official your title, your program. And so if sometimes there's many contradictions between the different accreditation system, it's bigger, it's more complex to deal with the ANECA, no, because the evaluators they come from public universities, and they are really far from the business reality. So the mass is pretty big now. Just only an overview about all these different system and the organization behind, no? Most of the people, they think, no, this is they are private institution, but it's not correct, no? Because for example, X is a public foundation, and also they have the support of the European Union for this mission, no? At the same time, you have the other evaluation agencies. No, for example, ANECA, for according to the Spanish Ministry of Education, and right now the Spanish Ministry of University. What can I say? Well, the development of this Spanish business school in the European rankings, no, well, you could see, well, they improved a little bit the position, but right now they are stopping now in this position, and they are really good. But let me tell you, no, let me remember you these two key ideas. One, the Spanish business school paradox. It means the more certification are accumulated by the business school, the more they find contradiction among all those accreditation system, and the more difficult to keep them. And the review, the academic curricula that is needed, no, with the digital transition is pretty complex, and also the greatest contradiction is related with ANECA, as I told you, because according to its evaluation system, at the end there's a huge confusion, and the business school, no, the professional business school, at the end they have to be one kind of School of Economics and Business at universities. And the accreditation system peak, it means there's a glass ceiling, no, because it's pretty expensive, pretty bureaucratic, and it's the academic curricula to the digital transition. For this reason, well, let me escape now this historical background. You have the whole explanation in the paper. Send it to Professors de Mercado, and let's see the big numbers. No, if you want to receive, no, to be part of these systems, to get all this accreditation, you need to spend around three no $30,000 dollars per each accreditation. And also, if you want to keep this accreditation, you need to pay an annual fee. Is close to $4,000 per year. So it's pretty expensive to have to keep all these accreditations. And the profits, well, thanks to have these accreditations, you are a really well-known in these rankings, in these international rankings. So you could ask a really high academic fee, no? Sometimes a little bit crazy, especially because the managers and the business leaders in Spain, they don't receive, they don't have a payroll like in other countries, no? And it's pretty expensive. And
Antonio,
also, let me
Antonio,
tell
very
you.
briefly, 5-minute warning.
Perfect. Let's move pretty quickly to the end about the accreditation system peak. Now, just only please check at this. At the beginning of the last decade, no, to get all this accreditation, it was great, no, because about your revenue, no, all this business school, the revenue, they moved from 20 millions to 150 millions, and right now the glass selling, of revenues is this amount, 150 millions. They can get more money thanks to this accreditation system. But in conclusion, this system, I told you, is pretty expensive, bureaucratic, and not productive right now because the regular cost you need to spend at least $30,000 for each accreditation, and also to keep it every year you need to spend 4,000 annual fee. The cost of opportunity is really high also because there's a rejection of autonomy to deal with own academic curricula and the possibility to promote new programs and business changes, because you need to fix with the different requirements from these three systems. At the same time, you need to deal these three systems with ANECA in the case of the Spanish Business School. The marginal cost, well, the next generation of the students, no, they are not worried about the accreditation, the public titles, and all this stuff, no, because they know that each accreditation it means a higher fee, no. So and also there's another kind of cost, no, like the sunk cost, coste hundido, and because as much money the business school spend in the accreditation system, there is a highest resistance to leave the system. The social cost, the externalities of this is there's no innovation, and they lack to improve the academic curricula, no? Because they think that they are the leaders, so they don't need to improve their programs, because also is a huge mass, no, to change all these programs. So for this reason, they don't offer really good solutions for the digital economy, especially for the new stage, the well-being economics. Sorry, but 1 second. Okay, you stopped my presentation. It's okay. Anyway, it's necessary to come back to the Proud Alumni Network. So thank you so much, and that's all.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Professor Sanchez Bayon. By the way, we didn't stop anything. But apart from that, ladies and gentlemen, do you have any questions? Any comments? Any suggestions? Well, all right. We will have time later in the day in case you have any queries or questions. But there's one question. Yes, please.
Well, a very short one. A little point of critique, actually. In Austrian economics, there is a concept known as private labeling, which means that what fascinates me always with business schools is that they try to get state accreditation. Why? Those people are never going to work for government. Those people are going to work in the private market. So why aren't there companies like, for instance, credit rating companies? Why aren't there business school rating companies? Wouldn't that be a big entrepreneurial idea? So maybe you could comment on that instead of trying to you know, getting state accreditation, it seems ridiculous to me.
Anything you wish to reply?
Or has he left?
No, I'm here. Can I answer?
Yes, of course.
Ah, thanks. No. That's the reason. Well, if you check no articles in this topic, there's no much information because it's a really hot topic. No, because at the end it's about education and economics. No, because in Spain we have this bureaucratic idea and everything is under the supervision of the state. No, the public agencies. So for this reason, again, yeah, it's necessary to move from a external accreditation system to recover the autonomy of the business school to become again professional business school to prepare according to the entrepreneurship talent and happiness management. I absolutely agree with you, and that's the reason because I have studied all these things with the big numbers, to know, because right now most of the really successful business schools they are really obsessed, to get all this accreditation, but for me this is absolutely obsolete, and it's not the way to deal with the digital economy, especially in the new stage, the well-being economics.
Excellent. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe this is a well-suited comment to bring our 5th session to a close. We will now have a 15-minute coffee break, and I look forward to welcoming you back at 11:30 for the 6th session, where we shall discuss economic well-being as a grand theme. So, ladies and gentlemen, go grab yourself a cup of coffee and please find your way back for the next start at 11:30. Thank you.